Hello and welcome, my name is the Finest Aster, this is Battlefield 1, and in today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the SMG 0818, now available of course in the Name of the Tsar DLC to the Assault class. As per usual for our DLC weapon reviews, we're going to be taking a closer look at the unlock requirements of all of the variants of this weapon, the stats of this weapon, how it compares both the different variants available and of course to other available SMGs to the Assault class in Battlefield 1, and last but certainly not least, we're of course going to also be talking about how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. That being said, and jumping straight into the unlock requirements, to unlock the factory variant of the SMG 0818, you're going to have to get 15 kills with the MP18 trench, as well as 10 kills with the anti-tank grenades. To unlock the optical variant of this weapon, you're going to have to get 50 kills with the automatical M1918 trench, and destroy 5 tanks with anti-tank mines. Both of these challenges are not too difficult to complete. If you're having trouble with the mines, I'd recommend playing on a map with more predictable vehicle movement and a game mode such as operations. With the unlock requirements however out of the way, let's move on to the stats of the weapon. And as baseline for today's comparison and stat analysis, we're going to be using the factory variant of the SMG 0818. It comes with a maximum damage of 23 and a minimum damage of 13.5, netting it a 5-shot kill all the way out to 22 meters, a 6-shot kill from 23 meters all the way out to 30 meters, a 7-shot kill from 31 to 38 meters, and from 39 meters onwards, a 8-shot kill. It comes with a very low fire rate at 450 rounds per minute, the lowest in the SMG category for the Assault class in Battlefield 1, and a typical poor muzzle velocity for SMGs at 380 meters per second. The magazine of the SMG 0818, however, is the second largest found on any SMG in Battlefield 1 at 81 bullets, only beat out, of course, by the Regal defensive. Further to this, we have a reload time as to be expected relatively lengthy given the size of this magazine at 3.95 seconds for the short reload and 4.5 seconds for the long reload. Given however the magazine size here, it is unlikely that you're going to get caught mid-reload trying to engage somebody. When it comes to the recoil of the SMG 0818, we find it at record lows with vertical recoil of 0.2 and horizontal recoil, that is to the left and right, of only 0.08, as well as a first shot recoil multiplier, at least on the factory version, at record lows at 1.25. This weapon basically doesn't move when you're shooting it. It's very hard to notice and unbelievably easy to control, be that with a mouse and keyboard on PC or with a controller on console. When it comes to the spread mechanics of the SMG 0818, they are better than your average SMG, but they have to be given this weapon's very low DPS. This weapon has a base ADS of 0.3 and a moving ADS of 0.5, as well as a hipfire while standing and moving at 2.25. Those values aren't that special, however it has an extremely low first shot spread multiplier, both when aimed down sight and engaged in hipfire at 3, paired with a spread increase per shot of 0.045, meaning that from the second shot onwards, this weapon is actually one of the most accurate SMGs available from a spread mechanic standpoint. Having looked at the base stats then, let's look at the differences between the two available variants of the SMG 0818. We have of course the already aforementioned factory variant, but there is of course also the optical variant, which comes with some key differences. First and foremost, of course, a different optical. Instead of an iron sights, this weapon actually has an optic, which in most scenarios actually, in my opinion, downgrades weapons because of the amount of reticle bounce present in Battlefield 1. However, because the SMG 0818 has such a low recoil, this reticle bounce is actually very, very low. In other words, the optical version of the SMG 0818 is actually quite easily usable compared to the many other optical versions of weapons otherwise available in Battlefield 1. When it comes to identifying key differences beside the already mentioned difference in iron sights versus optics, there's only a few, but they are important to point out. And one of them is in the recoil department. Here, where the factory variant comes with a very strong recoil decrease of 16, the SMG optical comes in a more typical 8, meaning that the SMG 08 factory actually recovers from its recoil twice as fast as the optical variant. Also in the recoil department of things, the factory has a first shot recoil multiplier, as already mentioned, of 1.25, whereas the optical variant comes in at 1.5, meaning of course that the optical variant has a little bit more of a first shot kick versus that available on the factory. Further down then, when it comes to spread mechanics of these two weapons, there's another few differences that we should point out. The first is in the actual base ADS values. While the factory comes with ADS values, as already mentioned, of 0.3 while standing still, 0.5 while moving, and when hip firing standing and moving at 2.25, the optical actually beats it with 0.225 for the base ADS while not moving and aiming down sight, 0.375 while aiming down sight and moving simultaneously, and the same hip fire value at 2.25. Further to that, actually, the first shot spread multiplier, while identical when engaged in hip fire, is actually lower on the optical version when engaged in ADS fire, with a multiplier of 2.25 versus the 3 found on the factory. And what this actually means is that the optical has significantly less spread when being fired. Not only does the optical variant have a lower initial spread, it actually keeps this advantage and actually expands on it because of its lower first shot spread multiplier, assuming now that we are engaging, of course, in ADS fire. As such, while the factory variant comes in on its second shot, spread-wise at 0.435 degrees of possible variation, the optical variant comes in a much lower 0.33 degrees, meaning the optical variant, from a spread mechanic standpoint, is going to be the more accurate of the two variants available. Also, on the note of spread, there is one more difference to point out, and that is the spread decrease. And as to be expected in a factory versus optical preset comparison, the factory variant here comes out on top with a spread decrease of 4.05 versus the optical's 2.7, meaning of course that the factory variant will recover from its spread quicker when not being fired compared to the optical variant of the SMG 0818. With the numbers then out of the way, let's talk about how these weapons perform on the battlefield. And first things first, unlike some other weapon comparisons or different variations of weapons, these weapons both compare relatively similar to another. That is to say, they play in a relatively similar way. They are both really meant for medium range-ish engagement. It's actually tough to try and figure out where to be actually using the 0818 in any combat distance, because really this weapon, from a time to kill perspective, is going to lose out against a number of other weapons at any engagement distance, really. If you're looking for another large magazine SMG to mow down multiple targets in close quarters, really even to a little bit of medium range, the Hellriegel's got you covered with 200 rounds more in the fire rate department, admittedly higher recoil, but not at the point where you could actually argue it's going to cause you to miss any more shots. Higher spread, but once more, at an engagement distance where the spread values don't make too much of a difference. If you're going beyond the Hellriegel's comfort zone, if you so will, you have weapons like the Riberol 1918, which once more have a fire rate advantage. And if you go even further beyond that, you're starting to look at weapons outside of the SMG category, which are just going to take the SMG 0818 to the cleaners. Look at something like the not very popular, for its already low time to kill, Huet, be that in the optical or low weight preset. That weapon will actually simply demolish the SMG 0818 at any given distance, despite its worse spread mechanics, because of course it has a higher maximum spread. At longer ranges, it has the better DPS over something like the 0818. The same would go for the Bennett Mercier, or if you want to go even more pro for long range engagement, get something out like the Mondragon Sniper. Once more, a weapon that comes with a better DPS compared to that of the SMG 0818. And the reason for that is the extremely high bullets to kill of 8 from a distance of 39 meters onwards. There's simply no way getting around this, no matter how accurate you are, no matter how still your target is standing, how perfect your aim. In the end, you're going to have to hit 8 shots unless you're hitting headshots, and most enemies are simply not going to stand still for the duration that it's going to take you to actually put off those 8 shots. For a matter of fact, from 39 meters onwards, your time to kill is more than 1 second, assuming absolute perfect accuracy and you're not missing a single shot. A scenario that is highly unlikely given the huge amount of player movement most players are using to their advantage in Battlefield 1. That doesn't of course mean that this weapon is useless. You don't have to be the best weapon to be a weapon that's usable. This weapon is, for an SMG at least, extremely flexible in its possible engagement distances, and the one thing it of course can do, much like the Hellriegel, is if you get behind a number of enemies, as at least in one of the clips I did in today's video, you can just simply mow down 3, 4, 5 of them without having even to think about having to switch to your sidearm or worry about ammunition. That's your one advantage you've got. But as any player who is, let's say, a little bit more familiar with weaponry in Battlefield 1 will know, you can often trade lower magazine size for better DPS, and that's if you have the accuracy to deal with the lower magazine size. I'm thinking here of things like the autoloading 8.35 or the brand new introduced double barrel shotgun what we have. That is usually a worthy trade-off, because you're usually going to be better off simply selecting your targets carefully and taking them out than trying to run in and get the entire team from a back range position. That is less likely to happen in Battlefield 1 for numerous reasons, including of course map design, game mode design, time to kill. There's many different factors that play a role here. So who is the SMG 0818 really for? Well, I'd argue this is a weapon somewhat aimed at the console player, and I don't mean that in a bad way. The Hellriegel is the more popular of the two close quarter orientated SMGs on the console versus the Automatico, which is the more popular on PC. Now, the reason for this disparity, as far as I've been told and understand from the perspective of a PC player, is A, the larger magazine size, but more importantly, the lower recoil, which can be a lot more difficult to compensate for on console than maybe with mouse and keyboard. And here, of course, the SMG 0818 becomes a weapon very attractive because of its extremely low recoil. It essentially is a long-range version of the Hellriegel, the most popular, as far as I at least know, SMG currently on console. I, for my part, really struggle to give this weapon a recommendation, be that in the factory or optical preset, and that simply comes down to the amount of damage, the DPS this weapon is putting out at any given range, really. Really, the mistake here is assuming that an SMG geared towards long range is a weapon that can function, given the weapon mechanics that we have in Battlefield 1. The damage output of an SMG is simply such that no matter how accurate it is, no matter how low of a recoil it has, at medium long ranges, you're not going to be able to successfully out-damage your opponents, and given the then low fire rate, you are out-damaged by most weaponry in close quarter encounters. That being said, of the two variants, if you want to use one of them, I actually would recommend the optical. Its lower spread means that really you're going to be hitting more of your shots, and the optical variant is usable in this case because of its extremely low recoil. The resulting reticle bounce is kept to a minimum, to a point where I'd say you can use this weapon without it messing with your accuracy while using. That being said, however, I'd love to hear about your experiences, your opinion on the SMG 0818, as well as, of course, your usual video suggestions. Leave those down below in the comments or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.